Two, and we're live. All right, everybody. Well, welcome to everyone who is watching this live and who may be watching this via recording to our further study panel now or in the future. My name is Corinne. I'm the Student Engagement Coordinator here at the Office of Employability and Graduate Success. And I have some of our fantastic academic colleagues here with me this afternoon to talk to you about, I should say, everything about further study and sort of what it entails. So I'm actually going to let them do the introductions today, tell you a little bit about who they are and what they do. So Surendra, would you mind starting off with who you are and what you do, and then we'll keep passing along the line.
Thanks, Corinne. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this session. My name is Surendra Shrestha. I know it's a difficult name. I usually introduce myself as surrendering somebody in my class when I go to my first class. I'm with the School of Engineering, who makes things happen. And I'm the Associate Dean Learning and Teaching. That's my role, and my area is in civil engineering, specifically in hydraulics and hydrology. So my research area is in urban water management. So when you see all this water flowing in and everything, I think we look at how do we actually manage that. So I think I'll back to you, Corinne.
Wonderful, and thank you so much, Surendra. Caroline, would you mind telling us a bit about you next?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining this session. So I'm Caroline Smith, and I'm the Dean of the Graduate Research School here at Western Sydney. And what I'm involved in is our higher degree research training. So that's what we do, is provide the research training for those that are looking at training early by doing a Master of Research. We also have MPhil programs, we have PhD programs, and I'm also responsible for supervisory training. So you work very closely with your supervisors doing a PhD or MPhil, MRes, as well as all the other workshop training for our higher degree research students. And as we're talking about research, I'm a clinical researcher, and that's what my passion is about.
Wow, busy woman you are indeed. Thank you so much, Caroline. And Laurel, let's jump over to you next.
Thanks, Corinne. And I'll just join with my colleagues to say hello and welcome to everybody who's joined us today. My role is I'm the Director of Postgraduate Education in the School of Business. And so this is a role that I absolutely love, because having spent 20 years in the corporate world myself, to be able to provide opportunities for people to grow themselves, develop their professional lives, is something that is really close to my heart. MBA, Executive MBA, Master of Business Analytics, these are the things that people are jumping into to upskill at the moment. I'm happy to answer any questions about those. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Laurel. Over to you, Michelle, if that's okay.
Hi, everyone, and thanks, Corinne. Yes, I'm Michelle, and my day job is the Dean of Education here at Western Sydney University. And the title of Dean is really just another way of saying that I lead a group of colleagues, and our passion is teaching and learning, and particularly preparing teachers and leaders to work in schools, but also in early learning centres and a whole range of other areas where learning takes place. And by my count, I think this is my 5th career. So I personally have been a good consumer of a whole lot of education as I've wandered through trying to make up my mind about what I'd like to do. And I have made no promises to whether I would have a 6th career yet. I'm still thinking about it.
Wow, definitely very busy indeed. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Michelle. And David, lucky last, would you mind telling us a bit about you?
Yeah, certainly. I do have a very common name. So, hi everyone, I'm David Lim, and I'm with the School of Health Sciences. I'm the Director of Academic Program for our postgraduates, Health Sciences. And within the postgraduate Health Sciences, we have 5 programs. We have Public Health, Health Service Management, Aged Care Management, Occupational Health and Safety, and Digital Health. And so no doubt it's like in this current climates that we live in at the moment, this might be of interest to many students as we hear more about how some public health and health service management play out in this pandemic. The team here at in the postgraduate health sciences, we work locally to target the health issues faced by the Western Sydney community, particularly the minority and the vulnerable people, as well as working nationally and internationally to ensure our research is translated widely with global policy and practice impact.
Wow. And thank you, David, and thank you so much. Everyone who's here today, you guys are incredible at what you do. We're very lucky to have you all as part of our panel today. Before we jump into the very first question, I will say to anyone who's watching this live, please do jump in and ask questions. If you've got ones that are specific to any of our awesome academic colleagues here today, they'd be very happy to answer them for you as well. But I think with that, we should jump into our very first question that we've got for you all today. And I'm going to read it out, and please jump in. Whoever wants to jump in to answer first is more than welcome to. But the first question is about, from your experience, do most people in the postgraduate space naturally follow on from an undergraduate course in the same discipline, or is it sometimes a little bit more different? Or how does that process sort of work?
Can I just put in my 2 cents worth here, Corinne?
Of course.
At the business school, Sydney Graduate School, our students who do postgraduate studies with us come from all sorts of different backgrounds, and we're expecting that they would do that. And so the way we've designed our courses with our foundation units, they are particularly designed for people who have not had business experience before, but see that as a further career path for them. And we, as I say, we have students from all sorts of different professions and backgrounds. And yeah, it's a great cohort to have.
I bet there'd be a whole range of experience there, I bet, as well.
And I can probably add to that, Corinne. I think, you know, it's not always the case, as Laurel has said. In some cases, your undergraduate degree can be a stepping stone. So, for example, you can do an undergraduate degree in teaching, and then you can do further studies to be able to then become a leader or a specialist teacher in a particular area. But as for a person, say in my case, I started out, I did a degree in science. Then I decided that I wanted to do something else. So I did a degree in adult education, and that was then followed by social sciences. So, and some of that was, and they were postgraduate studies. And that really followed my career interests. And I think these days, most universities do have lots of flexible pathways where you can build postgraduate studies in ways that follows your career aspirations as well as your interests. And with many universities, they also offer things like advanced standing and things like that. So even if you're already working, but you may not have studied in an area, you can actually find that your work experience can also give you a step up into postgraduate coursework study as well. So I think there's really, in these days of flexible pathways, pretty much it's about investigating your options and as Laurel has said, finding out what's on offer and how you can navigate through those pathways.
One of the things that I'd really like to pick up on is what something that Michelle just talked about, and people that come and do higher degree research training. Our students have a very diverse cohort. We have people that have come straight from doing undergraduate degrees, and then we've got people who have spent time working, and then people much later on in life, people having families. So essentially, we draw people into doing a high degree research training at various stages during their life cycle. Our Master of Research provides the kind of methodology and some disciplinary kind of coursework training. But I think with research, people come, as you've probably just picked up on some of the kind of conversations as people introduce themselves. With research, people engage with research because they're passionate about an area that really excites them, that they want to create some new knowledge about. So generally, this might be influenced by their undergraduate degree if it was more recent, or it might have been influenced by their wider work experience in more recent years.
Well, thank you very much. Surendra.
I I may add to what Laurel, Michelle, and Caroline just said, right? So I'm from engineering, and typically people will see engineering means you need to have an engineering background to go and do your higher degree research in the engineering area. It is not really mandatory that's the case. If you have it, that does help. But if you have a field experience, that helps. So really, it's a mix of things. And I really want to give my one journey, I suppose, in a way, where I've actually come from. My undergraduate degree was in civil engineering. As I said, I'm a civil engineer by profession from that point of view. But then when I actually wanted to go and started working in the field, and it took me to different area altogether. I'm a hydrologist now. It's more of a physical science area. And it also gave me the opportunity to travel around the globe. So I'm lucky and proud to be able to say that I've been to about 5 continents. I worked in the 5 different continents during my career, and they have given me really, really good opportunities. We at Western here will help students succeed in the goal they want to achieve by giving all kinds of competencies that those are required. And I think Caroline's office and the GRES helps us a great deal in achieving that. We have staff, we have colleagues, they are really, really very passionate to make sure that the students succeed in what they do. So again, somebody can start right after the undergraduate degree, like Caroline said, or somebody can come after a number of years of experience, like Laura and Michelle also have mentioned. So just wanted to mention that as well, in engineering as well.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, and from the health sciences point of view, rather than repeating what some of the conversations are, I think one of the great strengths of our program is really that flexibility. So you could come in straight away, you could sort of have a few years of careers and then come back in. Certainly, for some of the students who are thinking that, well, I probably need a bit more studies to build up my competencies in order to be best position myself to enter the workforce, then there are the opportunity as well. So for instance, I'm just thinking a lot that maybe some of the paramedic students who have just graduated, and there might be a short time periods, or nursing students, for instance, between when you commence positions, and then maybe a units in the postgraduate, such as our surveillance and disaster management, might be something that you're interested in. For some other students, for instance, who are looking at a competitive career as a health service managers, and I do encourage people to check out the New South Wales State Award for Health Service Manager. You might be very surprised how much they're being paid. And you might think about, hey, actually, I'm probably not quite ready yet. Then maybe a graduate certificate or graduate diplomas in a aged care management or health service management might well be something that would help you to get there quicker. So there's back to Michelle's, Caroline, Laura, and Surendra's mentioned, there is that flexibility. And even the postgraduate space, we're building on our strength that we are student-centered and we are focused on you, and we've tailored the program to help you through that journey.
Wow, so incredible. And it's really nice to know that there are so many different pathways and options and so much flexibility and sort of getting to where you want to be, regardless of what that is. So thank you very much, everyone, for your answers. And we just had a really good question come in from Borshan, and I hope I said that name correctly. And it's actually for you, the question, Surendra. It's specific to the Bachelor of Civil Engineering. And he said that he's about to be starting his 4th year degree, I was starting my 4th year of Bachelor next year in Civil Engineering with water and environment as my sub-major. My hydraulics related units are all great HD scores, but he wanted to ask you about my scope for research in the water/environment next year. What would you say to that, Surendra?
Thanks, Corinne, and thanks, Borson, for that question. It's actually right in my alley if I want to call it, right? Because that's in my area. As I said, I'm an engineering hydrologist, and I do a lot of hydraulic modeling. So it fits within your water environment area. We actually have a really strong team, the water environment team within the School of Engineering. So we have a water team. We also have the Hawkesbury Institute of Environment, which is the premier, one of the most, I think I would say, the outstanding institutes we have around the globe, not only in institution. So you will be able to work with the people in these areas. So we're actually developing something that is not only theoretically what you're doing, also have the practical implications. So we're working with Sydney Water Corporation, for example, looking at how they will actually treat water for the drinking water supply at the moment. We're working with a number of wastewater treatment companies that will make sure that whatever we are getting out of that is going to be recycled in a sustainable way. So it's a lot of work happening in the hydraulics, hydrology area. Boston, I think you have come to the right place. So we'd love to have further discussion with you on that one. And your score of high distinction obviously is an excellent start.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Surendra. Fantastic answer. And thank you very much, Boston, for your fantastic question. And at the end of this chat, we will have all the details on how you can get in touch with all our awesome academics here as well and academic colleagues. So thank you very much. Now, everyone, I'd like to move us on to our next question. Let's have a little chat now maybe about whether or not postgraduate study is a good option in what we are now seeing as a more competitive graduate labour market. And I guess that is the question. What are your thoughts on that as a statement, I guess? And yeah, your ideas on it being a good option.
I'll kick off. I think it is a good option, but like all good options, you've got to investigate it carefully for yourself and your own circumstances. And I think that investigation needs to start with your own motivation. Why are you doing this? And in my experience, if you're doing it as a stopgap while you're trying to make your mind up, that's probably not a good idea. I think you need to think more broadly about your life and your career goals, and if needed, to get some professional advice to perhaps help you to think through whether this is going to be a good investment for you. I think you've got to be really clear about what it takes, and this means researching the course that you want to do and seeking out the opinions of others, perhaps current or past students, to ask the question, well, what does it take to be successful? I think you also have to think about the investment that you're prepared to make, not only financially, but also in time and the other commitments that will be impacted by your decision to study. I had a family while I was studying, and so I had to be really clear about what that meant for my partner and my children during the time. And I studied for a very long time, 7 or 8 years in postgraduate study, and so it was a big commitment. I think, and that's where your support team is really important. So I think you've got to think about who's your support team, who are going to be the people that are going to encourage you on when you start to find that things are getting a bit rough. And I think that was particularly important for me when I was completing my doctoral study. And I think that, if I hadn't been for my support team, I wouldn't have got over the line. And I think the final thing that often is really useful to do is to talk to prospective employers. If you've got a field of work in mind, through your networks or family or friends, try and find an employer and ask them, how would they view somebody with this qualification on their CV? You can get a variety of answers. So I think it's always a good option. Learning's always great, but you've got to do your homework and think through a range of things before you make your decision.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. Did anyone else have any comments they wanted to add to that?
That was awesome advice, Michelle. And I honestly wish I'd taken it myself when I was doing my MBA. I went back to study when I had 3 little children and I was a single mum. I'm very happy that I had my mother there. So having that support system is really critical. But, it changed my life. It gave me a whole new focus, and it allowed me to give my children a really good life and, make sure that they had a secure environment when they were growing up. And I think many of us have those sorts of things in the back of our minds, particularly now. I'm seeing in our school, in the SGSM, a lot of our alumni coming back to study. And the good thing about what we offer is that it's very flexible. You can do one subject a quarter. We have 4 10-week quarters. So you can do little bite-sized chunks. And when you're starting back and perhaps wanting to put your toe in the water and you're a bit concerned about whether you're going to be successful or not, I think the structure that Western Sydney has for students to help them to try things out and to have that support all around them is really, really quite special. And I see lots of students taking advantage of that now. I think I've got more domestic students now enrolled in our courses than I have done for a couple of years. So obviously they've been doing that sort of reflection that Michelle has talked about. And we're very, very happy to have them, and we'll support them the best way we can.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. And it's really exciting to think there's so many options out there for further study. And as I was saying before, regardless of where you are in your life, and if it's something you want to do, there is an option out there for you. So it's really nice to know about that. Before we move on to our next question, did anyone else want to comment on that? Was there anything else to add?
Yeah, if I can, this is David from Health Sciences. So I guess building on the strength of Western Sydney and the flexible curriculums, I've just shared a link on the side. I don't know if the participants are able to view that. And that goes to the New South Wales Health Managers Awards. And it outlines the pay and skills, but more importantly, it also outlines what are the skills and competency that's required for the professions as well. So maybe I'm a bit different. I see that a degree is not just a degree. A degree is to start you on a journey to where you want to get to. And I guess for all of you that just completed your undergraduate degree, and congratulations on that. I hope you do get time to celebrate that. For some of you who might be thinking about entering the workforce and thinking about making a real difference and making change and having an impact to your vulnerable and disadvantaged populations. Some of you might feel that, for instance, in a level 1 health manager, you're going to be responsible for managing hospitals and other facilities that provide basic routine and emergency healthcare for customers, which may include multiple sites and services. But if you feel that you're not ready for that yet, then maybe a postgraduate qualifications or some of the units in the postgraduate program might well be able to help you to get there and feel more confidence and the different skill sets to help you to get there.
I'd also just like to just say a few words about how I see research at this point. In the GRS, we think research is for everyone. And, you know, I think the future is really about, for many careers, it's, you know, and what society is facing, it's about innovation in the future. And I think lots of businesses, as we emerge from COVID, lots of companies will continue to be interested in employing graduates with a higher degree research training, because it increases their global competitiveness and their innovative capability. So lots of companies will continue to want to invest in graduates who have higher degree research training. So if you know, as you know, taking on all the advice that's been shared by the panel, and if this is, you know, what you think is important for you at this point in terms of progressing your future career, I think, you know, developing your research skills and capability to make this will contribute to increasing your employability in the future.
Corinne, can I add something on that one? This is from, again, I'm talking from the engineering perspective. So all of those who are actually doing an undergraduate engineering degree, for example, you all will know that once you graduate, you then become eligible to become a graduate member of Institute of Engineers Australia. Now, we also have, because of the agreement, we are a signatory of the Washington Accord. So that means you can also, you know, work in a number of different countries around the globe, which are the signatories of Washington Accord. If you go to some of the countries, they actually will require you to have a higher degree rather than with an undergraduate degree. So a higher degree will really help your mobility a lot more than just with an undergraduate degree. So again, keep that in mind. If you want to be traveling around the globe, working around the world, making the difference in different parts of the world, then again, a higher degree will be really, really helpful in your career progression. Thank you.
No, and thank you all very much. Those answers were so fantastic. And I feel like everyone watching this is going to be learning so much. I feel like I'm learning so much as we're going. So thank you very much. Now, we have a third question here for all of you to answer. And it might vary depending on sort of what discipline or area we're talking about. But the question is, what is the time commitment required for those further study options? And is it similar to undergraduate study? And I know we have already talked about it briefly, but would you mind sort of giving us a bit more detail about what that requirement or commitment would be?
Well, I'll kick off again, and I'll say time is a pretty elastic thing, and anyone who's done any study at all will know that. And in my experience, I actually think we flip the question, and I when I've worked with a lot of adult learners, I say, well, how much time are you prepared to give to your study? Because a lot of people are not time poor, they're time jealous. Because they have so many other things in their life, they'll say, look, I can really only devote 6 hours a week or 8 hours a week. So it becomes a question of saying, what can I do that's realistic? And then does that match what it's going to take? I know in the teaching profession, for example, many of the colleagues who will study advanced qualifications are often already in leadership positions or aspiring to leadership positions, and they have really busy jobs. And so they really seriously think this through. And what it means is that sometimes, you know, they take a very pragmatic approach to their study. And I have students say, well, I had to lose my perfect button. You know, I couldn't get all my assignments perfect, but I had to get them to a point where I felt satisfied and proud enough to send them in. But I knew, given the time I had, this was the best I can do. So I actually think a really thinking through time, and thinking about what are you prepared to give, and how does that map what it's going to take, is a better set of questions. But most undergraduate students, who are also often juggling work and family as well too, will already know that, and will know some of the hard decisions that you have to make. It's just that, you know, as often you advance, you know, through your life, I've found that I've had more to juggle, you know, as children got older, or I became a carer for my parents. So it's about being really realistic and saying, how much time have I got to give to this gig right now?
Thank you so much, Michelle. Would someone like to continue on with that same conversation? Yes, David, of course.
Yeah, hi, thanks for that. In the postgraduate health sciences, as I mentioned earlier, we have 5 programs. So in public health, health service management, aged care management, occupational health, as well as digital health. So other than the master qualifications, we also have graduate certificates and graduate diploma as well. So hence, some of the students who might be thinking that I think I only need to do 4 units, then a graduate certificates within that program might well be suitable instead of a master pathway. And I think one of the points that both the other speakers have alerted to as well is the importance of your experience and how some of those experience could be used as a recognition of prior learning. So in the master proper, we have a 2 years pathway, 1.5 year pathway, and 1 year pathway. Those are based on individuals' experience. And so for somebody who is really working in the field, then they might well be qualified for the 1 year pathway into the master as well. So again, emphasizing the flexibility and that if you continue with this journey with us, as all program has, there's an academic course advisor, and he or she would help the individual students map out and tailor those units to suit the needs as well.
Yes, please go, Surendra.
I just want to add on what David just said. You know, in engineering as well, we have different programs going all the way from grad cert up to the Master of Engineering in terms of the coursework program, and there is also high degree research program. It maps upon how you want to do it and what you want to achieve. If you want to get, let's say, a specialization in 1 year cert, 1 year small area, you can do the grad cert just with, like in the health sciences, with the 4 units or 4 subjects. That you can do it. But if you already have an undergraduate engineering degree, then you can actually have the master's degree in 1 year. But if you don't have an undergraduate engineering degree, you may have a degree in, let's say, the science area or other related fields. Then we have the pathway program that allow you to do that program in anywhere from 1.5 to 2 years. It really depends upon, what is your background, and that goes on to initial discussion that I think Laurel and Michelle mentioned about what is your background, and David also, what's your background, where you're coming from. The flexibility at Western Sydney is amazing. As I said, we create the pathway, and David has mentioned this again, we pride ourselves in being student-centered, and we are here to make sure that if, where you would not otherwise have an opportunity, we want to make sure that you have the opportunity to be successful in what you do. So the time commitment, as Michelle said, it's not that how much time you have, how much time you're willing to commit. I think that's a really different way of putting the question, and actually throws the responsibility or the onus upon you as a student who is going to come to us. But we will make sure that you will be successful in whatever you're trying to venture, whatever you're trying to get. That's our goal. Every one of the members that you see here in this panel, every one of the staff members you talk at Western Sydney, that's what we pride ourselves in, the student-centeredness. Thank you.
Amazing.
I think it's just probably worth just mentioning a little bit different with research training. With research training, is that we've got two primary pathways. There's the PhD and there's the Master of Research, or you might do an honours that's embedded into, and might have done an honours as part of your undergraduate degree. There's perhaps a little bit less flexibility in kind of the time commitment to do these degrees, and that's partly influenced by the funding structure, which is quite different for doing research. So, but irrespective of that, essentially, so what that means is that if you're choosing to do a Master of Research, for example, that's a 2-year degree full-time or 4 years part-time. And if you are doing a PhD, generally, again, if you're choosing to do a full-time commitment to the degree, it's 3 to 4 years to complete, or up to 8 years if you're doing that on a part-time basis.
Thank you, Caroline. And Laurel, I'm not sure if you wanted to comment as well, if it's a little bit different in your side of things.
Sure. Well, at SGSM, we have 4 10-week quarters. And the way that our courses have been structured, a part-time load study is just 1 subject per quarter. And this really suits people who are busy, with family and work as well. So we try very hard to make sure that we fit in with the lifestyles of a lot of the people who are coming back to do their studies. For each of our subjects, we have just 1 session a week. That would be for 3 or 4 hours, that you would be in a seminar with all of your colleagues that are also doing the same study. So it starts to create a wonderful network. And so it's not only the academics who are supporting you'll find when you come back to study, but also those colleagues of yours, the network that's created with fellow students. And, I've got groups of my students, executive MBAs, they've all got their WhatsApp groups and they all work together and support each other. And so it's not a lonely thing. Even during a period of time like we have now with COVID and we're all doing things remotely, you can still have a lot of community and a lot of connection. And I think you'll find that in all of our courses. So my suggestion would be to talk to us, come and see us, make a time to have a chat and work out what's right for you, because everybody's a little bit different, but there's plenty of opportunities.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. Those answers were fantastic. And it's always so nice to know how supportive Western is with further study options and how many options there are out there for everyone. So thank you very much. Now, our next question that we've got here may be a little bit more specific to Caroline or Michelle, but please feel free to jump in, anyone here. And the question is, if following a research pathway, what are the options for students or anyone looking at doing that?
So our research pathways at Western in terms of higher degree research training are the Master of Research, which I've mentioned, in our PhD. So I'll just spend a minute or so just explaining that for you. So our Master of Research is equivalent of kind of 2 years of study, and its first year comprises of coursework, but you're also working with your supervisor. and this is about developing the research skills that you need to go on and put all the skills that you've learned during that first year into practice in that second year where you do a thesis. So yeah, in the Master of Research, you do research, learn how to be a bit of a researcher, and then you work within your discipline in your schools, learning about getting content knowledge around your discipline and also the appropriate research methods that you would use in your discipline. And you then apply that into your thesis in a year, in the second year of the Masters of Research. And that's a stepping stone as preparation to doing a PhD. So again, then the PhD is entirely research focused. There's no coursework as such. It's about developing that research question. It's about identifying the gap where you think your research question is fitting, developing those methods that's going to answer those research questions, and then implementing the research study that you're proposing, delivering it, writing, analysing, writing, and then obviously submitting a thesis. So those are the two kind of primary pathways, two primary research degree pathways that we have.
And I'd probably add to that in a number of the professional coursework pathways, there is usually research components. So, for example, if you were to be studying a Masters of Education, which is advanced studies in education, where you might be aspiring to be an educational leader, we have a sequence of units where you learn about research and education, but also where we lay the foundations for you to do an applied project around an area of interest. And that can build as a pathway into the PhD that Caroline was talking about. So I think there are opportunities within many coursework postgraduate opportunities to get a taste for doing research. And the other thing as well is many of the sorts of work roles that you might aspire to with a postgraduate qualification, those skills in being able to formulate questions, to be able to systematically investigate, to be critical, all of those skills that you learn through inquiry-based or researchful, the development of researchful type practice, are things that are developed in a coursework postgraduate qualification. And I guess the trick here is being able to know what you're developing and learning, and then being able to sell that to a prospective employer who will understand, and you'll be able to help them to see the value of what it is that you have achieved in the postgraduate qualification.
Thank you, Michelle. And actually, it's a very good time that you mentioned employers in your answer, because one of my actual next questions is about how employers regard postgraduate study in each of your respective fields. And have you had sort of any cool stories where students may have, done postgraduate studies and had a fantastic outcome? Any comments that you have on that would be really appreciated.
Look, I think for me, it varies according to the employer. For some employers, postgraduate study, they're generalists in their approaches to assembling their workforces, and it doesn't matter. Some will prefer it, some will target graduates, and others it's essential. And it might be essential because of accreditation requirements and things like that. But I think whatever postgraduate course you do, you've got to be able to sell it to the employers. You can't just assume that because you've got it on your CV, they will actually understand the value of it, and therefore then what you might offer that enterprise or that organisation. And so it's I think about, again, and that goes back to the motivation and the research and thinking about why is it that I'm doing this in the first place. Because employers will be varied in the sorts of things that they're looking for in assembling their workforces. And so the value that the qualification will have, it will vary. But if you can sell your qualification, and in my experience, I've had employers say to me, I had no idea that's what that sort of course taught you. So that for me is where I learned about understanding what capabilities I had developed through my postgraduate study, and how that then matched with the the needs of the employer that I was aspiring to work for, the sorts of things that I could enable them or could support them, or the innovation that I could bring to them. So it's like many circumstances, even with an undergraduate degree, you've still got to be able to sell yourself and understand what it is that you've developed and what you have to offer.
I think I'll just add on what Michelle just said. I think it's basically whatever you're going to do, you got to be able to differentiate yourselves, and you got to make sure that whoever is going to be employing you are going to get better value, right? It's all the return on investment. That's what they're looking at. And that also means you being able to find the niche area for your research that you're going to be doing your postgraduate studies in. So if you can differentiate yourselves, and that's what will help you to do that, finding the niche area that you want to research upon, then the headhunters will come after you. Okay, I think there's a terminology called headhunters, right? That come after you. I can give you multiple examples wherein people are, somebody gets just from the LinkedIn profile based upon their, their expertise research areas, where there are multiple people approaching that, are you available? So it all will depend. At the end, it's basically the uniqueness of what you're doing. You're not going to be on the rat race, rather you're differentiating. And that's what having, your high degree research will help you from anybody else. You're going to be differentiating yourself from the rest of the crowd. And really, I think that's where I'll stop. I think that's just adding to what Michelle just said. Is I would say that you're differentiating. I mean, people will usually you're referred to as a product, or I don't know how do you say. I usually say my graduates are my products, and the market will find the product they want. If we have a good product to sell, then they'll come after it. And they will pay the value for that. Thank you.
That's really good advice. But just one thing to add, just the very fact that you start to do your study and you put yourself out there and you demonstrate that you're committed to it, and that there's an endeavour that you are wanting to develop yourself. That in my experience is very important for potential employers. To have someone in an interview who's saying, I'm studying this, I've committed myself to it. I may not have finished it just yet, but wow, I'm learning skills every day that I can put to use. I think that's really important. And I find that a lot of the corporates out there who are looking for people who are doing our kind of study are very impressed with people who are actually making the effort and really, putting themselves out there. Thanks.
I'll add on to that as well. I'm very respectful of Laura. Before she joined Western, she was the head of marketing of a major bank, and so she's really the expert when she comes to. And thanks for sharing that. I think as our graduates, Western has a very strong brand. Western was ranked, was it the second or third in the world in terms of reducing inequity. And I think for all of you who are graduates of Westerns, you carry with you a strong brand that your potential employers are looking for. And I guess if you choose to come back and continue that lifelong engagement with us, we are going to be building on that brand. And that's a niche that you should be proud of.
I think I'd just like to add some very general comments, if that's okay. I think what we've seen is actually the number of people who have now got a PhD or a doctorate qualification has been rising significantly over the last couple of decades. And traditionally, people always thought people needed a PhD and they would go into academia. But the reality these days is actually there's more people that seek employment in industry. And there are a wide range of industries that highly value and employ PhD graduates. It's from the resource industries, the finance, which you're hearing lots about today. There's our governments, our health services, our policy area. The skills that are developed as a researcher are all highly valued in so many different industries. And I just thought, just also for those perhaps, those in the business sector again, just that, increasingly there are people in some of the top ASX companies who have people with PhDs on their amongst their senior executives. And, so I think, there's much, as I say, traditionally people thought people do a PhD, go into academia, but, that whole picture has transformed over the last decade.
Wonderful points. Thank you very much, everybody. I really like the points that were mentioned, David, when you're talking about, being proud and having a really strong brand with Western Sydney. I love that idea. And, being a graduate from Western Sydney myself, you're right. Like, it's such a reputable brand, I guess, in essence. So love those points and love everyone's points. So thank you very much. Now, last two questions, everyone. So we're doing really well. One of the second last questions we have is about how students can actually find out more about what options are available to them in terms of postgraduate studies that are out there for them. Who'd like to start?
I might have a go, I guess. Again, sorry, I didn't want to repeat myself, but we do have 5 programs in public health, health service management, aged care management, occupational health and safety, as well as digital health. And all of these are quite in the public media at the moment because of our response to COVID. So certainly the handbook, the online handbook, will be a good source to find out more about those units, and also make contact with myself or my colleague Stuart Efrons, who is our academic course advisor, and we're happy to answer any emails.
Corinne, if I may just piggyback on what David said, we have the structure within the universities. There's academic course advisor for every course we have. So that's really a good source of place to where you go and seek the advice in terms of what you can do, the pathway you can take, what units you have to do, and map out the whole program. In engineering, we have the traditional engineering degree in civil, electrical, mechanical, environmental. These are all the postgraduate courses we're talking about. We also have mechanical, we have mechatronic programs. We also have biomedical program. Really is one of the key areas where I think David's team and our team work quite closely with each other. So that again, as an engineer, you can go into the medical field, medical research areas. So that's the biomedical program. That's getting more and more popular at the moment. So any of those key programs that you want to work in. And we also have a double major. You can do a double sub-major. You can do a civil and environmental, for example. You can do mechanical and mechatronic. You can do a management in engineering. So really, there are a number of areas where you can mix and match depending upon what your interest is, what you want to do. So please, again, a handbook is a good area to start, but again, you can just go back and have a look at the whole academic course advisors, or you can shoot me an email. If you just type the name Surendra Shrestha, it's not a common name, so you'll be able to easily find within engineering. Shoot me an email, and I'll direct you to wherever you need to go, depending upon your interest. It's not only for that. Again, I can see that. Let's say if you want to work on some of the summer projects that you want to work on, please send me an email, and I'll put you in contact with those people who will be able to help you to work in the area that you're interested in.
Sorry, Surendra, while you're on that point, we actually had a question come in again from Borshan, who was actually asking about the summer scholarships and summer research program. And he was asking if there was any scope for him to work on any university projects within water and environment, be it unpaid, for that part of his course, I imagine.
I think that's Tanjeem. I think that's what I was just mentioning. If you want to work in a particular area, you can always write to those people, and if you go to the profile, you can see who are experts in that field, or you can just write it to me. There are a number of projects those are available. It's just making sure that you make the right contact. I think it's called the connection, the network that you need to have, and we are here to help you. And just send me an email, write to me. You have my contact details. I usually don't say this, even my mobile number is there on the staff online. So as long as you don't contact me over 10 o'clock at night on the weekends, I'm okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Surendra.
Yeah, I think there's not a lot I can add, Corinne. I think they're looking on to, for example, the School of Education website. There's a plethora of information available on the postgraduate courses we have. And as I said, that we have courses that are about getting an initial teacher education degree. So maybe you have been in another field and you've now decided that you've found your passion for teaching, which is fantastic. And you might decide that you'd like to become a primary teacher, or in my case, I decided I wanted to teach adolescent boys in secondary school, so I trotted off to learn to be a teacher. There are a whole range of different pathways, as well as for those that are already working in some form of learning or development or education role, being able to do external studies, to improve, grow your knowledge and skill. But again, in addition to what the university provides, there's a plethora of people and information. It's also about asking other people and asking networks, because there are some options out there. And I think you've heard today there are many, many reasons why we think postgraduate study at Western Sydney is fantastic, because of the range of things that we've talked about. But it's important to do your research, but also important to take that time to have that reflection, so that you are making for you the best choice at the time. But the other thing as well too is you may make a choice and then you might decide, maybe I'm not quite so sure. The sort of flexibility that David and others have talked about means that by actually asking questions, you might actually find that there are other options available and you can build on your study. I think one of the tricks is not to see study as sort of in these little isolated blocks, this certificate or that qualification, but rather to see these as building blocks. And increasingly providers like Western are really starting to say, well, we have to have flexible learning pathways. And that's I think what Western is trying to do, is to sell flexible learning pathways. That will result in a range of qualification outcomes for you. So you can have many pathways with destinations along the way, but also the opportunity to keep travelling if you decide to keep going.
Can I just add one point in relation to research? What's really important about finding more information about starting a higher degree research is that you have to work very closely with one person, well, a team actually, it's called your supervisory panel. And you need to identify a supervisor as part of your application process. So if you're at Western already, think about some of those academics and some of those that you really, really have similar, you're engaged in a similar area of interest that really excites you. They're the people to go and talk to. If you're outside of Western, the Graduate Research School has a website, and it also has some information to guide you about how to find a respective supervisor within the university in our respective research institutes, as well as all the schools.
Thank you, Caroline. And Laurel, I don't know if you wanted to comment on that as well from your perspective of things.
Well, anyone who would like to find out more about our courses, the MBA, Master of Business Analytics, they're very welcome just to email me. You'll find my email address on our website. And we have, as everyone has said, a wonderful group of academic course advisors, but I can point you in the right direction.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. There's so much support available, which is really nice to know, and it would help you very, very much to reach out on your journey. Now, the very last question is just about the options that are out there for students who might be looking for Commonwealth support places or options to defer fees. If they were looking at doing some of these programs, what options would there be out there for them?
Well, in the case of education, Corinne, we're one of the very few universities where all of our postgraduate courses, both our initial teacher education and our continuing programs, are all Commonwealth supported. And this, I guess, reflects the commitment that Western Sydney has made to supporting the development of education across Western Sydney and Sydney more broadly. And so that I think is a feature that makes our offering here stand out.
Wonderful. Would anyone else like to comment on that as well? I'm sure there's a lot of awesome information out there.
Yeah, just in relation to high degree research training, for the Masters of Research, the first stage, which is the coursework stage, is Commonwealth supported places. And in relation to doing a higher degree and the second stage of the MRes, which is that thesis year, so the second stage of the MRes thesis year and doing a PhD for domestic students, the fees are offset, so there is no cost while you have while your candidature is for that 3 or 4 years. So once you go over the 3 or 4 years, you will have to start paying fees if you haven't completed your PhD.
Wonderful.
Corinne, I'll have to love you and leave you, I'm afraid.
Yes,
I have a
of course.
corporate partner I'm waiting on the other line for me.
Oh, no, it's all good. We've got to the very end of our questions, so you've done very well. You've made it right to the end. Thank you very much for your time, Laurel.
Hi.
Goodbye. Wonderful. Now, I don't know if anyone else had anything else they wanted to add to that. Surendra or David, otherwise, yep.
Oh, yeah, Corinne, I just wanted to say something else as well, on top of what Caroline and Michelle has already mentioned. When you're doing your PhD and master, there are many projects that are funded by industry or through the research grants. So there are always possibilities of getting you the support through your supervisor and supervisory panel. Again, make sure that you approach them. The idea is don't approach cold. Make sure that you do some background work. I think Michelle has already mentioned that. You know where you want to go. You choose the pathway and make sure that you actually have done all the background work and approach. There are many, many opportunities available for scholarships.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for your answers. They were very, very helpful. And I'm certain that everyone who's watching this has learned a lot, not only about that answer for those questions just then, but also about further study in general and all the different options that there are out there for them at Western. There are so many. Who would have known, hey? But thank you all so very much for taking part in this panel, for providing such fantastic tips for our students, and for doing all you do for your disciplines and your areas. We're so grateful. And as I'll say at the very start of the panel today, students who are watching this at a later time, or who have anyone who has any additional questions, you're very welcome to leave them in the comment section, and we can get back to you with our responses for those for you. So we're definitely still here to help with your further study questions. But for now, I think we'll sign off this panel. Thank you again so much to all of you for being here. I know how busy your schedules must be. And thank you for teaching all of us so much about what is out there for further study for our students. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, everybody. Well, please go have an amazing afternoon. I really look forward to seeing everyone again very soon, I hope. All right. Goodbye, everyone. See you later. Bye.